1947. The largest airplane in history taxis in Long Beach Harbor.
It's 50 over a choppy sea.
2 and meet again.
The man at the controls is an eccentric innovator, movie maker, and world-famous flyer.
Howard Hughes was the most incredible aviator of the century.
But his dream life is turning into a nightmare.
He didn't know what was wrong with him.
What are you doing, bro? I'm Howard here!
They said his massive machine would never work.
65, 70.
Made almost entirely of wood, critics dub it the Spruce Goose.
The one question on everyone's mind, will this fly?
In the next few seconds, Howard Hughes will finally achieve his biggest dream, or die trying.
Power up! Power up!
In the history of man, there are critical chapters that forge together a daring individual, a crucial situation, and an innovative technology. Fate's fusion of man, moment, machine. November 2nd, 1947. Thousands pack California's Long Beach Harbor to see the world's largest plane. All eyes are on the H-4, also known as the Spruce Goose. It's not cleared for flight, but everyone wonders if Hughes will risk everything and try to take off.
If he crashes it, it would have been the most documented aviation disaster in all of history, and many people probably would be killed, and his reputation would be ruined.
Hi, I'm Hunter Ellis. He's been called a genius, a perfectionist, and a control freak. But one thing is certain, Howard Hughes is a survivor. By November of 1947, he's endured endless criticism, multiple plane crashes, a nervous breakdown, and a Senate investigation. But Hughes is unstoppable. He's determined to show the world that the H-4 is the greatest flying machine ever created. Hughes has spent more than $25 million and 5 grueling years building the flying boat. Originally intended to counteract a deadly threat during World War II. May 1942. The U.S. is shipping thousands of troops and tons of cargo across the Atlantic each day. But German U-boats take a devastating toll, destroying almost 700 Allied ships during the first 7 months of American involvement in the war.
We were essentially losing the war. The Japanese were running wild across the Pacific. The Germans were conquering everything in sight in Europe. And the idea that England would be isolated by the submarine threat was quite frightening.
Enter shipbuilder and industrialist Henry J. Kaiser. Kaiser's shipyards are already cranking out cargo ships for the U.S. Navy at a record pace. Kaiser's answer to the submarine menace is a huge flying boat that will transport troops and even tanks safely across the Atlantic.
There were no Nazi airplanes that could shoot down a flying boat that was going across the Atlantic. They didn't have the capability to reach out that far. So it was the right idea for that time period.
But Kaiser needs help to execute his plan.
This is going to be the largest aircraft ever built, and it's going to fly farther than any airplane has ever flown before.
This is much too big a project. It'll never be ready in time.
It's a beautiful sight.
He approaches Howard Hughes.
Hughes loved the aviation business, loved to be in the sky, and wanted to help, as a patriot, the U.S. effort, and saw this as a way to do it. If you could beat the U-boat problem, you took away Churchill and Roosevelt's biggest nightmare.
You're the person who I think can do this.
Hughes and Kaiser agreed to design and build a massive flying cargo boat called the HK-1 for Hughes-Kaiser 1. With Hughes signed on, the War Production Board agrees to finance the project. And in November of 1942, an $18 million contract for 3 flying boats is signed. But there's a catch.
He was going to build the first of these aircraft in 10 months, which is just totally unrealistic to ever think that you could design and build a flying boat in that length of time.
Hughes designs a plane that's more than twice the size of Kaiser's original concept, personally drawing and redrawing everything from the tail section to the steering wheel.
He couldn't stop meddling with the design of the Spruce Goose. It was one of the things that slowed down the production process. He always wanted it to be exactly right.
Well, it should be right, sir. This isn't right. Is it right?
There was maybe a hope that they could turn something out if Howard had not been involved with every single part of it.
Hey, this is all wrong. See,
But micromanagement isn't the only thing that slows down the progress of the HK-1.
I need the specs right now.
But I won't have the specs for you until the end of next week.
By early 1943, Hughes is also developing an experimental spy plane.
Buy every single share before the close of the day.
Buying up stock in TWA. Editing a major motion picture.
That shot remains in the picture, do you hear me?
And dating a cavalcade of Hollywood starlets.
Let's go.
Hughes had this highly unstable, highly volatile, highly creative nature. All these activities were part of his great projection of himself forward that kept him stabilized. He must have known the demons that beset him.
It's the summer of 1943. The HK-1 prototype is still on the drawing board, but 3 flying boats are supposed to be delivered to the U.S. military in September. Hughes is working around the clock to meet an impossible deadline, and as the pressure mounts, he's blindsided by the U.S. government.
Yeah.
We're reevaluating the HK-1 project.
What do you mean reevaluate?
Members of the War Production Board are questioning the value of the HK-1 to the war effort.
This is far too important.
They had only a limited amount of money, and they could probably use it in a better way.
We're considering canceling the project.
They can't do that.
Look, Howard.
And government officials want to know the status of their $18 million investment.
Project manager right now.
He was criticized for having a major program in World War II that was eating up resources and costing a lot of taxpayer money but not producing any identifiable results.
August 1943. Construction of the HK-1 begins after Hughes convinces the War Production Board to continue with the flying boat project. But a few months later, it's back on the chopping block.
The project that looked so urgent in 1942 because of military factors did not look as urgent. In fact, its urgency had all but disappeared by 1944.
By 1944, the U-boat threat is greatly diminished. U.S. convoys escorted by destroyers equipped with new radar systems have safely transported hundreds of thousands of troops across the Atlantic.
60s.
In March of 1944, Hughes misses the delivery date of the HK-1 by 6 months, and the U.S. government pulls the plug on the project.
No, they can't cancel this project. I've got thousands of man-hours invested in this thing.
As far as the U.S. government is concerned, the Spruce Goose is dead in the water. 1944. Construction of a giant transport seaplane for the U.S. military has come to a grinding halt. The entire project has been driven but also delayed by the machine's eccentric designer. The man is world-famous industrialist, aviator, and filmmaker Howard Hughes. The moment, the maiden flight of his most infamous creation, may never happen. The machine? The HK-1 flying boat, the largest airplane ever built.
How long is it going to take? A couple of days. But we still have to stress test this and that.
By March of 1944, Hughes has missed the delivery date by 6 months. And members of the War Production Board can no longer justify the value or the expense of the HK-1.
Canceling the project.
No, they can't cancel this project. I've got thousands of man-hours invested in this thing.
When the U.S. government cancels the HK-1 project in March of 1944, Hughes is devastated. Not being a man accustomed to failure, he takes the matter into his own hands.
Howard was not the kind of person who would accept canceling the program. He put his own money. He did that all of the time. He threw his own money at the fire.
When Hughes guarantees to personally cover any cost overruns, the government reinstates the flying boat contract.
I just think you're the man to take this project by the horns and follow through 100%.
Well, I appreciate that.
But realizing the HK-1 will never go into mass production, Henry Kaiser wants out of the project.
I'm going to make sure to see this project through.
Very good. Okay, Howard, good luck with it.
With Kaiser gone, the HK-1 is renamed the H-4, commemorating the fourth plane Hughes will design and build. The flying boat is not something Hughes can walk away from. By age 39, he's demonstrated time and again throughout his life that when he sets his sights on a goal, he's unstoppable. Born in 1905 in Houston, Texas, Howard Hughes is an only child. His father, Howard Sr., a successful businessman and inventor, holds the patent on a key piece of oil drilling equipment.
It became known as the Hughes roller bit or the Hughes drill bit, and it is the foundation of the Hughes fortune.
Hughes's legendary obsessive-compulsive behavior has roots in his childhood, specifically in his relationship with his mother, a Houston socialite and hypochondriac named Aline.
She was very germ-phobic. She went to great pains to keep Howard from anything, that might infect him, that might give him something.
Overly concerned for his safety, Hughes's mother sometimes locks him in his room. He becomes a loner at an early age. To occupy himself, he tinkers, displaying an aptitude for engineering.
He seemed to have this kind of innate ability to take things apart and put them back together again.
As an adolescent, Howard invents a motorized bicycle. But he soon discovers that the best rides are in the air.
He got his first flight when he was 14 years old and immediately fell in love with aviation. It was a seaplane that cost $5 for a ride.
In 1922, when Howard is only 16, his mother suddenly dies from an internal hemorrhage. Only 2 years later, Howard Sr. suffers a fatal heart attack. At 19 years of age, Hughes is an orphan and the sole owner of the highly profitable Hughes Tool Company. With his hands on a vast fortune, Howard heads for Hollywood. He wants to make movies, fly airplanes, and date starlets. He does all three.
Howard Hughes was an obsessive-compulsive personality who had almost zero sense of intimidation by either society or tradition, and saw himself as operating on the margins out ahead of society.
Hello, boys.
Hey. Hughes is undeterred by Hollywood insiders who see him as a brash, inexperienced outsider. In 1927, at age 22, Hughes begins production on a World War I flying drama called Hell's Angels.
Howard Hughes went after the making of Hell's Angels just like he did every other item that he ever became associated. He went out with intensity, he went out with precision. It had to be just so, his way.
Hughes assembles the largest private air force in the world and shoots aerial fighting scenes from every imaginable angle. But 3 stunt pilots are killed during filming, and Hughes himself is injured in a daring maneuver that even his pilots refuse to perform.
It turns out that it was a blockbuster movie. Even though the reviews weren't that good, he put $4 million into it, he got $8 million out.
Having mastered the role of movie mogul, Hughes shifts to a new obsession, flying.
In 1935, he decided he wanted to be the fastest man in the world, fastest man on the planet. And the only way he was going to do that was to build a very special airplane.
Glenn, you're the best pilot I know, other than myself. And I think you'd be terrific at this job. Will you take it?
Howard's a great opportunity. I'd be happy to.
Hughes hires pilot Glenn Odekirk as his head mechanic.
We asked Odie and a fellow named Dick Palmer to build me the fastest airplane in the world, and they did. They built the H-1 Racer. It was just a unique, fast airplane. There's no wiggle room in the cockpit. It was basically an engine with a saddle on it.
September 12th, 1935.
They took it down to the Orange County Airport, and by gosh, he made pass after pass after pass, and the average of his 7 or 8 passes was 352 miles per hour, which in fact was a world speed record in September 1935.
Hughes and his team have built the fastest airplane in the world.
And he put things in that airplane that were 20 years ahead of its time. The H-1 influenced virtually all World War II fighter aircraft design. And in fact, it was actually 80 miles an hour faster than the Japanese Zero.
But speed comes at a cost. In 1935, 33-year-old Hughes plows the H-1 into a beet field. The second of many crashes he manages to survive.
Howard, how are you?
Great.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
January 13th, 1936. Hughes gets the call he's been waiting for.
Thank you. Excuse me, ladies. Hughes. Are you sure?
Wind conditions are perfect for a run at the transcontinental speed record.
That's fantastic. I'll be right there. Well, girls, I have to leave. I've got a date with an airplane. Till we meet again.
Piloting a modified single-engine Douglas Northrop Gamma, Hughes flies from Burbank to Newark in just under 9.5 hours, posting a new transcontinental speed record. Not yet satisfied, in July of 1938, Hughes goes after the most prestigious of all aviation speed records around the world.
It was only a year before that Amelia Earhart had tried to go around the world and was lost in the Pacific. So everyone was wondering whether he could really pull this off.
Piloting a Lockheed 14 loaded with the latest technology, Hughes circles the globe in less than 4 days. In doing so, he slices the previous record in half and secures his place in history as an aviation hero.
And many people thought he had eclipsed Lindbergh in his fame as an aviator.
New York City, July 17th, 1938. Thousands shower Hughes with ticker tape and admiration during a parade down Broadway. As America becomes embroiled in World War II, Hughes Aircraft supplies airplane parts to the U.S. military. But in 1942, when he takes on the Flying Boat project, it quickly becomes a personal crusade that tests everything Howard Hughes is made of.
Howard Hughes was a man of obsessions. And so when he got into the business of developing this prototype, it was something that could absorb him. His passion, his sense of being ahead of the rest of society and creating something that would be truly memorable.
By persuading the government to reinstate the Flying Boat contract, Hughes may have held on to his dream. But his grasp on reality seems to be slipping away.
We're going to use Pratt & Whitney 4360s. We're going to use Pratt & Whitney 4360s. Use Pratt & Whitney 4360s. We're going to use Pratt & Whitney 4360s.
Are you okay, Mr. Hughes?
Yeah.
It's really around this period that some of Hughes's battles with something that we now know as obsessive-compulsive disorder really start to surface. He didn't know what was wrong with him. He just knew that from time to time he would repeat the same phrase again and again.
We use Pratt & Whitney 4360s.
Howard started to realize something was wrong.
Look, listen, Howard, you've got to make a decision. This thing is months behind schedule.
Unable to make decisions and unable to delegate,
Mr. Hughes, are you all right?
Hughes's increasingly bizarre behavior brings the entire H-4 project to a grinding halt in the summer of 1944. In October, with the H-4 still lying in pieces in its Culver City hangar, Hughes climbs aboard his Sikorsky S-43 seaplane and disappears. No one knows where he's going, when he's coming back, or if he has completely lost his mind.
Look,
Howard, you got to make a decision. This thing is much.
October 1944. Howard Hughes has spent 2 years obsessing over every detail of the design and construction of his flying boat, but the project is now hopelessly stalled. The man, pushed to the brink of a nervous breakdown, is visionary aviator Howard Hughes. The moment of flight he's dreamed of seems to be slipping from his grasp. The machine is his flying boat, a monumental creation that sits in pieces.
Are you all right?
After months of sleep deprivation, Hughes' grip on reality has slipped. When he cracks under the strain, Hughes climbs into his Sikorsky S-43 seaplane and disappears. This is the first of many disappearing acts Howard Hughes will perform during his lifetime. He spends months wandering the country in his S-43, never staying in one place long enough to be found. Even the flight engineers that are with him are sworn to secrecy. On the road, Hughes' behavior becomes even more erratic. He checks into low-budget motels, obsesses over germs, and becomes increasingly paranoid.
Sir, are you in there? Would you like me to make up your room?
They don't know what he did during the day. It's this really odd period. It lasted some months where Howard Hughes virtually disappeared from the public eye.
February 1945, Shreveport, Louisiana.
Evening, friend. How you doing tonight? I'm law in this town. Don't appreciate you hanging out here. Listen, I'll tell you what. Why don't you come with me? I'll set you up with a nice warm bed, get you cleaned up. Come on. Take you someplace where you can sleep tonight. Evening, Clarence.
Disheveled and disoriented, Hughes is taken to the local jail.
Wait a minute, what are you doing? Come on, come on, son. I'm Howard Hughes. I'm Howard Hughes. Yes, and I'm Charles Lindbergh.
Unable to prove his identity, Hughes spends several hours behind bars.
I'm Howard Hughes!
You identify this man?
Finally, the manager of a nearby Hughes Tool Company plant is brought in to make a positive ID.
My God, that is Howard Hughes.
Well, Mr. Hughes, I'm sorry. We had no idea who you were.
In September of 1945, after an 11-month absence, Hughes cleans himself up and returns to Culver City.
All right, fellas, time to get back to work.
Hey, Howard, it's good to have you back.
Glad to be back.
A lot has happened during the last year. For one thing, World War II has ended. The flying boat will never complete its wartime mission of carrying troops and cargo to Europe. But Hughes has his own mission.
Hughes continues the project after the war because he had invested so much psychic energy into it, and it also had become a great symbol for him, his ability to be the great entrepreneur, the great social prophet, the great creator.
Because large airfields are less accessible than suitable harbors in World War II combat zones, the H-4 is designed as a seaplane.
The most remarkable aspect of the Hughes prototype is that it is simultaneously a great boat, a significant sea-going vessel, and a new kind of airplane in its scale. There's never been anything like it.
The H-4's fully cantilevered wings span a distance of 320 feet. 179 feet longer than the wingspan of a B-29 bomber.
There wasn't a hangar in the world it would fit into. They had to build a hangar around it once it was completed. Quite an undertaking. Just the hangar alone was a magnificent thing. The hangar was in the shape of the airplane.
Carrying a full payload, Hughes' flying cargo boat weighs in at an astounding 400,000 pounds, or 200 tons.
It taught the world a lot about large airplanes and made people think in a larger scale.
The mammoth size and weight of the H-4 paves the way for colossal carriers like the Boeing 747. Massive size equals massive capacity. The H-4 is designed to carry 750 troops or two 30-ton Sherman tanks.
In every instance, in every case, it was beyond what was known at that time period.
To power his machine, Hughes chooses the air-cooled radial R4360 Pratt & Whitney Wasp Major engine.
It was the largest engine available at the time. It was a 4-row engine, 28 cylinders. Very complicated engine. Took a very professional flight engineer to operate it. Very prone to failure if not operated exactly correctly.
At 3,000 horsepower each, it'll take 8 R4360s, totaling 24,000 horsepower, to lift the H-4 into the sky. The H-4 is designed to fly at an altitude of 5,000 to 7,000 feet and to cruise at an average speed of about 200 miles per hour. This is the Grumman Albatross, first used by the military for air-sea rescue. Now, by all measures, it's a pretty large aircraft, but the H-4 is 12 times the weight and has over 3 times the wingspan of the Albatross. But they both face similar challenges while taking off and landing on water. Reed Dennis has been flying seaplanes for 25 years. Today, he's offered to let me co-pilot his Albatross to give me a scaled-down demonstration of what Hughes had on his hands trying to take off in the H-4 flying boat.
You ready to go? All set. Now you're going to start to feel the nose come down.
Yeah, but it's like
you can see it.
It's like planing in a ski boat.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you're up. Now we're up on the step.
Getting onto the step is the point at which the hull of the flying boat starts to rise in the water, reducing the bow wave and the surface tension.
Give me 15 degrees of flaps.
Okay, 15 degrees of flaps. You got them right there.
And we didn't do that until we got to 60 knots.
Okay, we're looking at 70 right now.
And then about 75, we'll lift off, and there we are.
Nice and smooth. So it seems like it takes a lot of power to kind of get you up over that bow wave onto the step.
Oh, it does. That's the most dangerous part of the takeoff.
And I imagine the heavier the aircraft, the more power it requires.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why Howard Hughes needed 24,000 pounds of thrust.
That's correct.
At 12 times the weight of this Grumman Albatross, Hughes has his work cut out for him trying to get his bird onto the step and into the sky. And once it's in the air, he has to bring it back down in one piece. Now how about landing? What are some things you have to think about there?
Well, in landing, your main problem is judging how high you are above the water, and sometimes if the water doesn't have enough of a ripple or texture to it, it's very, very hard to judge how high you are. As soon as it hits the water, then you can just chop the power and hold the nose off as long as you can and let it settle into the water.
And that way you don't dig the nose in.
You don't dig the nose in. Exactly right. Yeah.
At the time the flying boat project was conceived, war demands made metal construction materials unavailable. Hughes designs the flying boat to be built with a wood laminate called Duramold, veneers of extremely thin hardwoods like spruce and birch.
The Duramold process was revolutionary. They used a urea formaldehyde glue under high pressure and heat to glue these surfaces together, and it actually became like a molded plastic. This airplane is actually one of the very first composite airplanes ever built.
Prior to the H-4, many planes are made of wood, but never one this big. The use of Duramold draws sharp criticism from skeptics, but Hughes stands by his materials and his airplane, bristling when it's referred to as a flying lumberyard. But the nickname that bothers him the most is the Spruce Goose. June 11th, 1946, moving day. The pieces of Hughes's massive flying machine are transported 28 miles through the streets of Los Angeles, from Culver City to Long Beach Harbor.
It was a 6-month planning effort just for that one day's move. And it was a big event in Southern California. I mean, it took a whole length of, or width of Pacific Coast Highway to bring the wings down in the tail section.
At Terminal Island, the H-4 is finally ready for assembly. But with the end in sight, Hughes begins one of the most painful episodes of his life, one that will propel him farther down the dark road of his own mind. On Sunday, July 7th, Hughes takes off in his XF-11, a reconnaissance plane he's building for the U.S. military.
And then he made what is the biggest mistake, I think, of practically his entire aviation career.
Howard Hughes has an unrecoverable mechanical problem with his aircraft and absolutely nowhere to land. July 7th, 1946. The assembly of a 200-ton flying boat is halted when tragedy once again strikes the machine's creator. The man is revolutionary aircraft designer Howard Hughes. The moment when his vision takes wing may now never happen. The machine is the Spruce Goose, the largest airplane ever built. With the final assembly of his H-4 transport plane finally within reach, Howard Hughes takes a prototype XF-11 aircraft up for a test flight.
It was supposed to only been a 20-minute test flight. Well, he's out tooling around the Los Angeles skies for an hour and some minutes. At that point in time, he had a mechanical problem.
The right engine develops a serious oil leak, but Hughes continues to fly.
Howard always wanted to find out what was wrong with the airplane in the air, so that when he landed, he could contact the engineers and tell them what they had designed wrong, or chew out some mechanic for doing something wrong. So Howard was troubleshooting when the situation got worse.
Well, the oil leak allowed the propeller to go into reverse pitch. It's like taking a big barn door and sticking it out on the end of your wing.
With the aircraft literally falling from the sky, Hughes' only hope for survival is landing at a nearby golf course. But he comes up 2 blocks short. Hughes is forced to crash into a Beverly Hills neighborhood, destroying a house. No one is killed, but the XF-11 lies in pieces, and Hughes is critically injured.
He's in terrible condition when they take him out. The initial feeling is that Howard Hughes is not going to make it, that Howard Hughes has maybe a 50-50 chance at most.
Pulled from the wreckage by a young Marine, Hughes suffers severe internal bleeding, 3rd-degree burns, and a crushed lung. Like a cat with 9 lives, Hughes somehow survives his 3rd and most violent plane crash. But now, he has some new and very serious problems, one of which will haunt him for the rest of his life.
He was never the same. He didn't know it, people around him didn't know it, but that moment changed his life forever.
When he was released from the hospital, they transitioned him from morphine into codeine, and he remained hooked on codeine the rest of his life.
Hughes grows a mustache to cover facial scarring and spends the next 6 months recovering. Meanwhile, the H-4 is nearing completion, but Hughes has yet another hurdle to overcome. February 1947, the United States Senate launches an investigation into wartime military contracts.
There were many contracts that were delivered on in World War II, but few of the contract holders were as visible as Howard Hughes, and so Howard Hughes became this kind of target.
Republican Senator Owen Brewster of Maine spearheads the investigation, noting publicly that U.S. taxpayers have spent $18 million on a plane that has yet to fly.
Brewster and those folks said that it's a flying lumberyard. It will not fly. I mean, that was ricocheted throughout the news all the time. And it was getting to Hughes.
August 1947. Hughes arrives in Washington to testify before the Senate committee. During several days of testimony, a determined and defiant Hughes stands up to the Senate committee's accusations and levels many of his own.
Of Senator Brewster. Now, Senator Brewster's story as related here yesterday is a pack of lies, and I can tear it apart if allowed to cross-question him. And it is unfair.
There's no sign of the man who has spent much of the past 2 years in various stages of dementia and disaster. Near the end of his testimony, Hughes throws down the gauntlet in defense of his flying boat.
I put the sweat of my life into this thing. I have my reputation rolled up in it, and I have stated several times that if it's a failure, I'll probably leave this country and never come back, and I mean it.
But Howard Hughes was really out to salvage his entire reputation. And he really felt that everything he stood for was on the line.
Is it not true that you are going to propound the questions for me as I testify and based upon what I testify as I go along? Are you willing to set aside the questions in advance which you will ask me? Mr. Hughes.
With public opinion squarely in Hughes's corner, the Senate committee adjourns. He leaves Washington triumphant.
There's kind of a rebirth for Howard Hughes right after these Senate hearings. He's really the Howard Hughes, the heroic figure who flew around the world in 1938.
Hughes heads straight for California, where he and his crew spend the next 3 months working around the clock to finish the H-4.
All right, boys, let's put her in the water.
Sunday, November 2nd, 1947. Hundreds of members of the press are brought down to Long Beach Harbor to witness Howard Hughes taxi his great ship across the harbor. Thousands watch as Hughes's massive machine finally floats into public view. Everyone wants to see it fly.
I think the personal identification between Hughes and the H-4 was complete by this time. If it didn't fly, nor would he fly. If it got off the ground, he would continue to get off the ground.
The question that's on... He loaded the airplane up with a lot of media, and it was supposed to be 3 high-speed taxi runs, and then that was it.
Reaching speeds upwards of 80 miles an hour, the H-4 makes 2 taxi runs in the harbor.
So about how fast?
After the second run, KLAC radio reporter James McNamara asks the question on everyone's mind.
Are you gonna fly it today, Howard? No, she's not cleared to fly.
The huge plane has sophisticated hydraulics that operate the giant control surfaces. George Haldeman, an inspector with the Civil Aeronautics Authority, has told Hughes that he can't fly the H-4 until the backup hydraulics are tested.
And so it was illegal for him to fly. Hughes, from a test pilot point of view, is kind of between a rock and a hard place. He has told congressional investigators that he'll fly this airplane or he'll leave this country. So he's got pressure from both sides. This was the moment of truth.
If Hughes takes off, he could be endangering everyone on board. He turns to hydraulics engineer Dave Grant and says,
"Lower flaps 15 degrees.
Lowering flaps 15 degrees.
15 degrees of flaps. The recommended takeoff setting for the massive flying machine. Haldeman wonders if Hughes is going for it. Radio reporter McNamara has no idea what the instruction means. Hughes steers his flying boat into the headwind, checks his settings, and advances all 4 throttles. The H-4 surges forward and quickly picks up speed. It needs to reach 75 miles per hour to take off.
25, 30, 35. Tremendous wind. More throttle.
Howard Hughes is speeding towards his destiny. Will his 200-ton creation take wing and fly, or will his dream crash and burn? November 2nd, 1947. Thousands of people crowd Long Beach Harbor to see if a world-famous aviator will take wing in his mammoth machine. The man is rebellious and wily millionaire Howard Hughes. The moment he has struggled toward has finally arrived. The engines are running, and he's at the controls. The machine is the H-4, a gargantuan flying boat that has never been flown. CAA Inspector George Haldeman has only authorized the flying boat to taxi, but Hughes has just instructed the hydraulics engineer to lower 15 degrees of flaps, the recommended takeoff setting. The 200-ton H-4 is picking up speed. This is the moment of truth. After enduring years of criticism and speculation, Howard Hughes and his massive flying machine are at the threshold. In the next few seconds, his 5-year-long quest will end in either triumph or tragedy.
Many people didn't think it would fly, being the largest airplane in the world. So that's the gamble that he took, that he could take the most powerful engines in the world, put 8 of them on an airplane, and get it airborne.
It's 50.
Radio reporter James McNamara describes the moment for his listeners.
It's 50 over a choppy sea.
The first thing I hear is a tremendous noise of the water beating on the bottom of the airplane. And each step it went up on, that noise became less and less.
55, 60, more throttle, 65, 70, It's at 75. And something is momentarily cut out. We're off! Power off! We are airborne, ladies and gentlemen. We are airborne. We are in the air. I don't know if Howard Hughes meant for this, but we are. Hughes' mammoth aircraft has flown.
It was hopping. It wanted to leave the ground. So when he asked for 15-degree flaps, now these flaps are the size of the wings on a DC-3. I mean, a lot of lift. So as soon as they hit 75, 80, it just popped right off the water.
The H-4 soars above the water for only about a minute, but it's the moment the world has been waiting for. The moment that proves all of Hughes' critics wrong and vindicates him as an engineer, an aviator, and a visionary.
It was a vindication of his life. It pulled all of his aviation together in one moment and said, I do what I say.
Not daring to ascend beyond 100 feet, Hughes brings the H-4 down for a perfect landing. But a new controversy develops almost immediately. Did Hughes actually intend to fly the H-4?
Did you expect this, Howard? Well, I like to surprise people.
My guess is that the crafty old Howard Hughes tried to figure out a way to fly the airplane without it being illegal.
Unable to prove that Hughes intentionally lifted the plane off the water, CAA Inspector Haldeman never takes action against him.
When that airplane lifted up, whether it was intentional or not, he had to feel, when it was airborne, by gosh, I've done it. This is a great moment.
Only Howard Hughes knows whether he intended to fly the H-4 that day. But one thing is certain, it flew, and the world celebrates his success.
It did something that he wanted to do with motion pictures, he wanted to do with aviation, he wanted to do it with everything that he touched. It advanced the state of the art. And in this case, I think dramatically suggested future possibilities for passenger and freight aviation.
In spite of promises to do so, Hughes never flies the H-4 again.
I would say there wasn't a practical need for it to fly again. Howard Hughes was making a point that the airplane would fly and was developed, and that the public got their money's worth. He was moving on to other things.
He builds a humidity-controlled hangar in which to store it and hires an engineering crew to maintain it.
They would turn the engines on a monthly basis. It was flight ready to go, but they waited for that call from Hughes that never came.
At a cost of over $1 million a year, Hughes maintains the H-4 in flight-ready condition for the next 30 years until 1976. In the years following the flight of the Spruce Goose, Hughes Aircraft continues to advance aviation technology, building cutting-edge airplanes and helicopters. But Hughes himself spirals downward, becoming a prisoner of his obsessions and his drug-addicted body.
It was a very sad end to a man who'd had such glorious moments.
In April of 1976, Howard Hughes falls into a near coma. His aides attempt to transport him from Mexico to a Houston hospital, but Hughes never makes it. Instead, he dies where he was most alive, in an airplane flying high above the ground. In 1993, after nesting for almost 47 years in Long Beach, California, the Spruce Goose is moved to the Evergreen Air Venture Museum in McMinnville, Oregon. It remains a testament to Hughes' larger-than-life legacy.
To this day, when you're in its presence, you feel the distilled essence of the glamour of aviation felt in the 1930s, the miracle of flight, the poetry of technology, and the idiosyncratic genius of Howard Hughes.
We'll never know if the Spruce Goose could have performed the wartime mission for which it was created. But on November 2nd, 1947, Howard Hughes lifts his giant flying boat out of the water and into history. Some chalk it up to good science, others to good luck. But it's another example of the M3 factor, a unique force we'll continue to explore on Man, Moment, Machine.